A few looked uncomfortable, but some people had wide grins on their faces, and a number of hands were in the air. Now, we're going to deal with dangerous power combinations. Many of you are going to turn 18 this year, so we want to be sure you're ready for it and you don't choose anything that's going to get you or others killed. Jake's hand was already in the air. The teacher sighed. Yes, Jake? Super speed without the reflexes to match. Absolutely. You'd be the equivalent of a speeding train, with no way to dodge people, cars, or buildings. You'd die in minutes, and kill a lot of people doing so. Now, if you'll turn to page 18 of your book, there's a chart of incompatible powers, and pages 19 to 20 are powers that need another power to work. The next month will be spent going over these in detail and explaining what can go wrong. Tests 2 and 3 will contain this material, so be sure to pay close attention. The bell rang, and I found myself slipping into the back of Jake's group as usual, listening to their chatter. Hey Clark, you've got 50 points all saved up, right? They laughed and Clark shook his head in embarrassment. Nah. I've got like 20. Hey, that's not bad. You could be Spider-Man with that. Yeah. What have you got, Jake? Jake's grin spread. 34. There was a dazed silence, broken by Clark. Whoa. Hey Jake, remember that we were buddies when you start working. That's some money. I tagged along with Jake as I kept my head down. No one could see another person's numbers, but I still lived dreading the day someone would ask. My numbers had to be low, but I'd been embarrassed to check. Sure, I hadn't bullied anyone, but I'd spent most of my life doing nothing big of note. I sure hadn't run marathons with Jake. Finally, my 18th birthday rolled around and I was excused from school. The cake and the presents, everything was ready, waiting for the moment when my points became, for a brief moment, visible to outside eyes, when they saw why and how I'd gotten my score. It came as a slow scroll of memories. A tiny child, handing a tissue to another tiny child and saying in a lisping voice, "Peas don't cooey. You'll be otai. You'll be otai always. Mama Shay's show." Small hands hesitating over a lunch tray and slipping over to a kid with no lunch, handing him half a sandwich. "I'm not hungry. You have some." The memories scrolled on. "Hey. I'm not great at math, do you want to study together?" To a student crying after a test. "Here, I have an extra butterscotch from my Nana's house. Have it. It's good when you're sad." I didn't know I'd been such a nice kid. But that had changed when I got my computer and spent all my time online. I knew. Maybe the tally would be decent, but it wouldn't be nearly up to some kids. I want to die. I hate what he did to me. My stomach jumped into my throat. Everyone turn around. This is someone else's private thoughts. It's not for you. They hesitated and turned around, and I watched the online friendship unfold, desperate words of comfort pouring out of me, trying so hard to reach this one unknown person somewhere in the world. And finally, "I have to go," and I wrote back, "Promise me you'll be back tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you." And I was there, when she got back online. And I was there the next day, and the next. She graduated with some nice points and got into an aviation school, one with free student counseling. Finally she messaged me back, "I get it now. I should live, not just to stick it to him. I should live for me, too. Thank you." And I never heard from her again. And another online conversation. And another. And another. How many people had I talked with? How many had I fought for? Username after username, and I remembered them. I remembered grabbing onto them when they even hinted at their pain and refusing to let go until I knew they were safe, they were loved, they could survive and heal. Tears poured down my face, dripping into my untouched cake. I couldn't see anymore, but I could still hear myself typing furiously in the projected memories, fighting for people I would never see. For some of them, too many, I had never learned the end of the story. For every success, there had been one who simply slowly stopped responding. A few had spiraled into addiction and it had broken my heart to anger them, but I'd picked up the phone and called emergency services for them. One thanked me later. A few I still hadn't heard from. Several might have overdosed before the EMTs could arrive. I might never know, but I had no regrets. Then it was silent. The only sound was my sniffles as I ugly cried into my cake. "Angela, can we turn around now?" my mother asked. I gulped, blew my nose on what I hoped was a napkin, and nodded. "Oh, Angie." My mother hugged me hard and I sobbed into her shoulder, shaking with the force of it. "Are you okay?" "Yeah. I felt a lot from that." "A lot of people do." My mother handed me an actual tissue and took the corner of the tablecloth out of my hands, wiping my face with another tissue. Oops. I dried my eyes, gulped, and looked up at my tally. The tissue fell from my hands. What? I stared with a slack jaw. How? You could have heard, not just a pin drop, but a pin drop from a mile away. No one moved, their eyes fixed on the number in front of me. Score, 243. Please choose your powers now. Unused points will increase the strength of all abilities evenly. My hands shook and I reached for the prompt, but my mother caught my hand and shook her head. "That's too many points, Angie. We need the textbook." For hours, we pored over the powers and conflicts between them. Flight. EM wave absorption. Speed. Teleportation. Shapeshifting. So many expensive abilities, and they were somehow pocket change. I hadn't even known. Finally, I had chosen. I hoped these powers would be useful to me, but I didn't want to show them off. My mother had been adamant about obtaining some powers that would help me keep a low profile, and thinking about it, it was probably for the best. I took a deep breath and held my hand over the prompt. Save and exit? I nodded slowly and pressed the yes button. Somewhere in the city around me, a car alarm went off. Then another. Then all of them. Every bell rang at once. Windows rattled as a surge of strength roared into me, settling deep in my bones. Marie. My father stood by the door with a suitcase. My suitcase. Full of my things. I know. My mother hugged me and pulled me to my feet. Angie, dear, be brave, okay? You'll do well. My mother had told me once that she had chosen only one power, prophecy. She must have known. Mother, don't lie to me. Will you be okay? I'll live, and I'll see you again. Good luck, Angie. She waved goodbye as my father took me on a slow, lazy drive through the city and into the countryside, never hurrying, never alerting anyone, but never ever stopping until we reached a small cabin in the Dakota Badlands. Angie. We need to talk. My father said, stopping the car.